All right, we're excited to join you today in our Wildcats for Life series on ArizonaWildcats.com. I'm Ryan Hansen, former manager, former staffer with the men's basketball program at Arizona, and a proud graduate of the University of Arizona. And I'm joined by two graduates, two Wildcats for Life that are back on campus in full effect. And it's two names that you guys know very, very well. But we're going to walk it back a little bit and remember those glory days. We've got NBA champion, NCAA champion, NCAA player of the year. I mean, the list goes on and on. I don't have to tell you much more, but Seattle's own Jason Terry and the Wildcat for Life. We love you, JT. Welcome back.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here, man. Glad to see you, Rhino, and obviously Coach Murph. I know you'll introduce him next, but he's a big part of the reason why I'm back home in Tucson.
Yeah, Jack Murphy, for those of you that don't have a chance to remember his days, started as a student manager with the Coach Olson era, worked his way up. He was on staff as a graduate assistant and one of our coordinator of operations. Went on to a great career outside of Arizona with multiple stops at universities. He was in the NBA on the bench with George Karl. But we are most excited to have Jack Murphy, assistant coach, back on the bench for his second year under Coach Miller. Murph, boy, I tell you, there's nothing better than having the family like this back together again. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Rhino. Very excited to obviously be back with Coach Miller and just supremely excited to have JT back with us. You know, everyone calls him the Jet, but as you know, Rhino, long before he was the Jet, he was JT.
I love it. That's right. We've got some interesting topics to cover, but let's kind of start with Jason Terry. Let's take you back to Franklin High School. You're entering into your senior year, looking at schools. What drew you to Arizona? What was the hook that brought you to the desert?
Well, life is full of choices and decisions that you make. You know, as a young teenager in Seattle, Washington, growing up, I had the opportunity to choose between Washington, Georgetown, Arizona State, UCLA, and Northwestern. See, Arizona was not even in the picture. I committed to Washington, and then after one night, a fall league game, you know, my mom was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna call Arizona. I'm like, Arizona? What are you talking about? She said, I just don't like the feeling about you going to Washington. Let's call Coach Olson and see if he has opened up a spot for you. Man, God's good grace, two guys decommitted. They reneged and went somewhere else, opened up a spot for me. Luke called me, flew me down to Tucson, and 85 degrees in an October fall night. I was like, man, this is it. Get me out of the rain. I'm going to the desert, and the rest is kind of history. So, you know, once I got down to campus, you know, and I was able to visit McHale Center, go through the locker room, see the tradition, see the heritage, see guys like Sean Elliott, Steve Kerr, see those pictures hanging up, Kenny Lofton. It was just, to me, it was a no-brainer. My aspirations of wanting to be an NBA player when I got out of college, I knew that dream could become a reality if I became an Arizona Wildcat. And so that's why I made my decision.
Yeah, to fulfill your dreams. I love that. Do you remember your first game in McHale? Is there anything special about your first game? When did that sink in, that fan support?
Man, no, I remember my first practice, though. Reggie Geary beat the – man, I was 145 soaking wet, and Reggie Geary was a senior. It was finally his turn to shine, and he picked me up full court every single day, man, and he made it tough on me, but he made me the player who I am today. But I do remember my first game. I would say not regular season, but it was the red, white, and blue game, or the red and blue game. Never played a scrimmage in front of that many fans ever in my life. And when I tell you it was packed and they were loud from start to finish, it really gave you those goosebumps. I mean, you felt like you were competing for a national championship, but you were competing against each other. And it was great. It was the ultimate home court advantage, and it was like that consistently my entire 4 years at the University of Arizona.
Jack, you obviously spent years as a manager, as a coach. You have a lot of close relationships with former players, but you followed the Arizona basketball program from your high school days in Las Vegas. Big college basketball fan. What maybe outside of college basketball are some of your memories of being on campus, and what makes the University of Arizona so special?
Well, Rhino, I mean, coming from Las Vegas down here to Tucson, same climate, same weather. I didn't have to escape the rain like JT, but just being at Arizona and being part of the basketball program, I mean, that was my fraternity. That was my family. You know, everybody talks about going to college and you develop these lifelong relationships, and it's really the last time in your life that you're going to be around a group of people that you can kind of have those relationships. Because once you start off in your professional career, the pool of people you meet on a day-to-day basis grows so much smaller. And I think of some of the best friends in my life, the people that were in my weddings I've been to, that have been there when times have been great for me personally or professionally, and times when it's been hard. And they all come back to Arizona. You know, it's not just the players, it's some of the managers that, you know, the Tony Miklas, the Tim House, John Castles, and then obviously the players. I mean, it's not always the Jason Terrys and Richard Jeffersons that everybody knows, the Justin Wessel, John Ash, Jason Stewart, you know, the guys that grinded it out every single day there in practice. And those are some of your lifelong friends. And that goes back to Coach Olson, the program he built. And I think that JT would agree. It goes back to Coach Rosborough. I mean, Coach Roz really, gosh darn, when you think of Arizona basketball, my favorite memories, I think of Coach Rosborough and that special family that we had there, man. That's Arizona to me.
I think you've hit it on the head, Murph, with the family aspect. JT, as you spent many, many years in the league as a player, and now obviously coming from the G League with your front office experience, you came across Wildcats that played for Coach Olson before you, with you, after you. You've obviously interfaced and played with and against a lot of guys that came up through the Sean Miller program. The Arizona basketball program fashions itself with the phrase "a player's program." You can probably speak to that the best because of your connection to this 20-some years of Arizona basketball. Speak to that family atmosphere and how that's brought you, you know, maybe back to campus.
Well, a player's program was prevalent once I stepped foot on campus. I give Sean Miller a tremendous credit because he's come and he's built something new. He's gave it a name, but it also was a player's program back when I first stepped foot on campus. I mean, from day one, when I came to campus, we would play pickup, and you're playing against former Cats. I mean, Sean Elliott, Ray Oles, Sean Rooks, Judd Bushler, Steve Kerr. I mean, Khalid Reeves, Damon Stoudemire. I mean, we're playing against these guys in the summer. So you can imagine as a freshman being a fan of the game, seeing some of the guys you idolize. Now you're getting to compete against them. Now you really realizing your dream come true right before your eyes, because if you hold your own, now you know, okay, that dream could become a reality because, heck, these guys are, some of them, most of them were still in the league. They were still playing at a high level. And now you're holding your own against them. So it just gave you the utmost confidence. But not only the competition, it was the brotherhood, right? After those scrimmages, going to eat, you know, going to hang out on 4th Ave, you know, having conversations about life. And these guys genuinely cared about you and the experience that you would have at the University of Arizona. And even after those runs, they would go off to their teams in the NBA and we would, you know, play our season. They will still call. They will still come back. The biggest impression of a player's program that I have in the lasting memory is in 1997 when we were about to make history. When we were getting ready for the national championship game, Sean Elliott and Steve Kerr walked on that bus right before we were headed over to the arena. Now, goosebumps, nerves, you could say whatever. I had already slept in my uniform, so I was already gassed up. But guys were nervous. But those guys coming on, speaking to us, speaking about, you know, they had an opportunity. They didn't win the championship, and this was our time, and they were living through us. It gave us all the incentive and motivation to go out there and bust Kentucky upside the head and bring that national championship home to Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, that was a great night. I was on that bus with you, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking back.
Right. Chills.
Indianapolis right now. Hey, Murph, you spent time. I know you watched Jason play at Arizona, and you watched him in person, but you also saw him in the league with your time with the Nuggets. So you've seen him. There's a lot of stories about Jason Terry's development, the sixth man coming off the bench. What's the biggest or maybe the most impressive part of what Jason Terry's story is about that you think is so important to tell about Jason Terry that maybe people don't always think about?
When I was a freshman here, JT was a senior, and he walked on water. I mean, that year he was the best college basketball player in the country, and I was a freshman manager. And Rhino, the freshman manager starting back at the bottom. And both JT and AJ Bramlett were unbelievable to me and the other managers. And there's a reason why Jason and I have been friends for over 20 years now, because of that 1 year. And I'm just a freshman manager, and he was a senior. So like the way he treats people, the way he treated people back then, all the way through. His mom was at a lot of our games. JT and I were talking the other day about the game in Albuquerque when the clock, for some reason that clock didn't start on time. And
hey, Murph, it still don't start on time.
No, and I was in the stands. I had driven out there. A few of us managers had made the road trip, and I'm out there with his mom. And she turned. We had been talking the whole game. She turned to me, JT's mom. She goes, "You guys better leave first." So we went running out of the arena, and it just goes back to that the family deal. And then when you talk about the NBA, when I was with the Nuggets, we played the Nuggets and the Mavs played in 2009 in the playoffs. Before every time we'd play the Mavericks, JT would come up and give a hug or in warm-ups. If we're playing the Lakers, it was the same with Luke. The Nets, seeing Richard the night before, that brotherhood just continues. And I think that it didn't obviously start in the late 90s, but gosh darn, guys like Damon Stoudemire and Jason Terry continued it. Because every time you saw those guys, it doesn't matter. I saw JT at the Final Four in Minneapolis. Was that over a year ago? And I probably hadn't seen Jason in 2-3 years. And he hugged me like we had seen each other the day before. And that's the type of person Jason is. It's the type of person that a lot of players in our program have been. It continues now with Nick Johnson and Caleb Tarczewski and those guys that Coach Miller has had. But it's a testament to the person that Jason is, and he wouldn't be here today if he wasn't that type of person.
JT, your time at Arizona, you played for a Hall of Famer. You played for Coach Olson. You obviously played for some great coaches after that, but if I were to take you back to those 4 years under Coach Olson, Murph, you mentioned Jim Rosborough and the other assistant coaches with that group with Phil Johnson and Jesse Evans. If you could think back to those 4 years, what did you learn during your time at Arizona that prepared you for this 18, 19-year career in the NBA, and now you're a father, you're a man, you are back as an assistant coach. What did you learn during that time that has set you up for all this great success?
Well, one big lesson I learned from Coach Olson, and he told us from day one is, like, listen, if you're going to be a part of this program, you are going to be accountable for your actions, right? We are going to hold you to the utmost accountability. And I think, one, he gave us accountability. 2 was responsibility. And then he empowered us to take ownership in our own dream, in our own goals. And if you put the work in, then he will reward you. And he was a man of his word. And, he told me, he said, JT, you know what? If you're patient, if you stay in this program for 4 years, I guarantee you by your 4th year, you will be player of the year. You'll take this team to the tournament, and I will give you the keys to the car. And, as a young 18-year-old, you're like, yeah, man, you heard it all. Yeah, whatever. But when I watched Reggie Geary and how he, waited his time, was a role player, didn't get a lot of credit, but always guarded the best player, sacrificed, for the betterment of the team. When it was his senior year, that kid played almost 40 minutes a night. He never came out the game. He allowed him to play, and he gave him everything he said he would. And so when I looked at that, I said, hey, man, he got to be the GOAT. He got to be the truth. And so, just being able to, go to Luke's house, go to his office, and just have real conversations about life. At a time when I'm away from home, miles away from Seattle, Washington, and I can go into my coach's office and talk about, in 97, I had my first kid as a sophomore, to be able to talk about what it meant to be a father. How was I going to provide for my kid? I mean, those type of conversations are priceless, and they've made me the father and man that I am today. So just a role model, a mentor, a father figure at a time in my life where I needed it more than ever.
Murph, same question. Your time at Arizona, what did you learn? What were some of the lessons that have carried you through to the successes you have as a father, as a head coach in college basketball, obviously now back as Sean Miller's associate head coach?
Yeah, I would say in terms of basketball, Coach Olson is the best I've ever been around in terms of his practice and preparation. There's a reason, Rhino, why we were undefeated in Madison Square Garden in the month of November. I mean, early on in the season, no one was better because of the preparation we had October on into November. And I think Coach, he carried his life that way. You know, he was prepared for every situation. He had a big heart and showed me how to be a great father. And I think that Coach Roz, Coach Tension, a lot of the staff members, yourself included, Rhino,
I know
showed us
too,
all
man.
the same way. Yeah. And I think that just the way that Coach Olson carried himself, you knew that he was under control even when he wasn't. You know, there was times at practice where he'd put those big fingers, you know, pointing out, and you knew somebody was in trouble, or he had his funny one-liners. I'll never forget, Rhino, you were probably there telling Ricky Anderson, if you wanted to come to the game tonight, you better buy a ticket. Or you're having too many turnovers, you better open up a bakery. I mean, he always had his one-liners, but he never lost focus on the team. And when he was in practice, he was a hawk. He'd be down at one end, one baseline. He could see the other baseline, and he'd correct the one count or whatever he was working on from across the court. You didn't get anything by him.
JT, you're back. You're now an assistant coach. What do you think are some of the biggest contributions you can make to keep Arizona basketball at the top?
Well, the number one thing for me is being a mentor to these young men, showing them the way, you know, guiding them, helping them achieve their ultimate goal, right? And then holding them accountable to it. I think one thing about it is when you aspire to be something and you can see somebody that has really walked it and lived it, then you can have true inspiration every single day you put that uniform on. Also, you know, I'm going to be a guiding light. I mean, Coach, he's going to lean on me at certain times, but I'm going to lean on him as well. I'm still young in this coaching realm. I want to learn and soak up as much as I can from Coach Murph and Coach Miller the whole way. And, you know, so for me, I want to bring a national championship back to Tucson. I mean, it's been too long, and I've won at every level, and I don't think this is anything different. I mean, I want to be the next assistant coach to help bring a championship to the University of Arizona. And with guys like Murph, DP, and staff, and Coach Miller, I mean, look how much success Coach Miller has had in his tenure at the University of Arizona. He's going to go down as one of the all-time greatest coaches to ever walk that sideline. And that's not easy to do, you know, coming behind a guy like Coach Olson, who's a Hall of Famer. But the only thing I would tell you is he's about due, because he's knocked on that door a couple times. It only takes another opportunity for him to get there, and we hoist up that trophy. So I believe this is the time. The time is now, and we're ready to get it done.
One more question for you, JT. That's a really important one. Will you have your cat socks on under your suit pants the first night of the first game?
Every game, every night, I'll have those cat socks on. It's funny because when we finally made this thing official, I was having surgery and I was in the hospital getting my meniscus repaired. And you know how superstitious I am, man. I had on my blue cat shorts. I had the white and blue cat socks, hiked up, and I had my Arizona shirt on. So, man, I'm going to be rocking and rolling, ready to go. And hopefully I can inspire the next generation of cats.
I'm telling you, those 97 blue unis, still the best ever Arizona uniform.
Epic.
Hands
Epic.
down. There's no doubt about that. JT, let me finish up with this is the last question. JT, Wildcats for life means for life. The definition of that, because you didn't graduate. You didn't get your degree right away. You went on to great things. But during that time, you came back and you got your degree. What does that mean to you?
Well, it is very special, and if you can see the background in the back, you'll see not only that football helmet, because I almost went out for football now. Lou talked me down.
Skirt, skirt. I can see the skinny post there with you on the
right.
line.
But I'm very proud, and I got my degree hanging up behind me. Obviously, this opportunity would not have come in the coaching realm if I did not obtain that degree. And I put my eggs all in one basket, man, and I said, hey, I'm going to stop school one semester early and put everything into becoming a pro. I did that. I achieved that for 19 years, but I never stopped because my mom told me once I left home in Seattle that once I finished, I better finish that degree. Once I started, I better finish and get that degree. I got to give credit to one lady, man, Jennifer Muse. If you don't know her, you will, but she worked in the Cats academics. And she made sure, man, she called me every summer. Did you get those credits? Did you get those credits? And yeah, 15 years later, with help from Lehman Benson, Jennifer Muse, I finally got those credits, man, and I finished. So whether you do it in 4 years or 15, we always finish the job. And that's what it means truly to be a Wildcat for life. You'll always have a great support system behind you, and the job is never done until it's finished.
Well, you got 3 graduates here in front of you on this Wildcats for Life series. Thanks for joining us, and got to give a shout out. Guys, I watch both of you from afar, sometimes a little bit closer when I'm on the radio, and I will say I'm proud of your accomplishments, but I'm more honored and proud to call you family. Murph, love you. Your Arizona basketball family. We know our families well. JT, I was doing jumping jacks and backflips when I got the news that you were coming back to the desert, but I've always felt like we were family. Heck, I know all your cousins all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
Helped get tickets to back in the day. You always had about 8 cousins in every town, and they had a ticket to every game, didn't they?
Yeah.
We love having you back on campus, and you truly are. Both of you embody what it means to be a Wildcat for life. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you, Rhino.
Thank you, Rhino.
Appreciate it.